The city never sleeps. Beneath the dazzling lights, two worlds collide, one of wealth and privilege, the other of struggle and survival. When Jordan, a black taxi driver, picks up Evelyn, a wealthy white businesswoman, it seems like another ride. But fate has other plans. A sudden turn of events leaves them stranded together in the city's heart, far from the comforts of their worlds. As danger looms and secrets unravel, an unexpected connection forms. But can love defy the barriers built by society? Or will their differences tear them apart before the night is over? This is a story of fate, love, and the undeniable truth that sometimes unexpected journeys lead to unforgettable destinations. Beneath the city lights, where love knows no class, no color, only the beating of two hearts lost at night. The city pulsed with energy, its neon lights flickering against the rain-slicked streets. Cars honked impatiently, and the distant hum of music from bars and nightclubs filled the air. It was just another night for Jordan Carter, a taxi driver who had learned to navigate not just the streets of New York, but the unpredictability of the people he drove. He had seen it all: the drunk executives, the lost tourists, the heartbroken lovers staring blankly out the window. But tonight felt different. Jordan checked his watch as he pulled up to an upscale hotel. His next ride was here. He barely had time to breathe before the door swung open, and in stepped a woman who didn't belong in the back of a taxi. At least, not in his. Evelyn Sinclair. Even if Jordan didn't know her name, he would have recognized her type anywhere. Expensive designer dress, heels that clicked against the pavement, and an air of confidence from understanding the world bent in her favor. She barely glanced at him before sliding into the back seat, perfectly manicured fingers typing away on her phone. "Upper West Side, make it quick," she said, not bothering to look up. Jordan raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. He had dealt with people like her before, ones who didn't see him as a person, just a driver who existed to get them from one place to another. Still, money was money. He pulled away from the curb, the car's tires splashing through puddles. The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Jordan focused on the road, but he caught glimpses of her in the rearview mirror. She looked tense. Not just the usual uptight stiffness of the wealthy, but something else. Troubled. "Rough night?" he asked casually, surprising even himself. Evelyn finally looked up, her sharp blue eyes meeting his in the mirror. For a moment, it seemed like she might ignore him, but then she sighed, rubbing her temples. "You could say that." Jordan didn't press. He just nodded and kept driving. Minutes passed. The city stretched out before them, an endless maze of opportunity and danger. And then, a loud thud. The car jolted. Jordan's hands gripped the wheel as he swerved to avoid something. Someone, darting into the street. The tires screeched, the taxi skidding to a stop. Evelyn gasped, her hands clutching the seat. What the hell was that? Jordan's heart pounded. He looked out into the dimly lit alley ahead. A shadow moved. Then another. And suddenly, they weren't alone anymore. Jordan's grip tightened on the steering wheel as his eyes darted between the figures emerging from the shadows. 3 men, their faces partially hidden by the dim streetlights, approached the taxi with slow, deliberate steps. Evelyn's breath hitched. "Jordan, drive!" He didn't need to be told twice. He shifted the car into reverse, but before he could hit the gas, a loud bang echoed through the night. One of the men slammed his palm against the hood. Jordan's instincts screamed at him to get out of there, but something was off. The men weren't just random thugs looking to cause trouble. They weren't attacking, at least not yet. The tallest of the 3, a man with a jagged scar running down his cheek, leaned toward Jordan's window, his voice low and menacing. "You're in the wrong place at the wrong time." Evelyn clenched her jaw, her fingers trembling as she reached for her phone. Jordan saw it and immediately shook his head. "Don't." She hesitated, but the fear in his eyes made her stop. Jordan turned back to the man. "Look, we don't want any trouble. We'll just—" Scarface smirked. "Trouble's already found you." Before Jordan could react, one of the men yanked open the back door. Evelyn let out a sharp gasp as rough hands grabbed her wrist. Hey! Jordan lunged back, his protective instincts flaring. Without thinking, he twisted in his seat and shoved the guy off her. The man stumbled, but didn't let go, pulling Evelyn with him. Come on, sweetheart, you don't belong here anyway. Panic flashed in Evelyn's eyes, but then something else. Anger. She wasn't the type to go down without a fight. She drove her knee into his stomach. The man cursed, doubling over. Get in the car! Jordan shouted. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She scrambled back inside, slamming the door just as Jordan threw the car into drive. The tires screeched as the taxi shot forward, barely missing Scarface as he jumped back. Hold on! Jordan warned as he sped down the narrow street, taking sharp turns without slowing. Evelyn clutched the seat, her breathing heavy. What the hell was that? Jordan kept his eyes on the road. That's what I'd like to know. Her gaze flickered to him, searching for answers he didn't have. The city blurred past them, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just a random attack. Someone wanted them trapped, and now there was no turning back. Section 3. Nowhere to run, the taxi sped through the darkened streets, weaving between traffic, as Jordan fought to put as much distance as possible between them and the men who had attacked them. His heart pounded, but his grip on the wheel was steady. He had been in dangerous situations before, but this was different. This felt planned. Evelyn was breathing hard, her hands clenched into fists. Who were they? And why were they after us? Jordan shook his head, eyes locked on the rearview mirror. I don't know, but I don't think this was random. Evelyn's lips parted in disbelief. Not random? You think they were waiting for us? Jordan didn't answer right away. The city lights cast a golden glow on Evelyn's face, highlighting the shock and fear in her expression. Look, I don't know who you are outside this cab, Jordan finally said, his voice calm but firm. But I know one thing. People like that don't attack for no reason. Either they were after me or they were after you. Evelyn swallowed, her gaze flickering to the window. I don't know. I don't have enemies. Jordan raised an eyebrow. Rich people don't have enemies? She shot him a glare, but didn't argue. The tension in the car was suffocating. The adrenaline was still coursing through them, but reality was setting in. They had barely escaped, but for how long? Evelyn exhaled sharply, running a hand through her perfect blonde hair, now slightly disheveled. Okay, let's think. We need to go to the police. Jordan scoffed. And say what? Hey, officer, some guys just tried to grab a rich white woman and a black cab driver in the middle of the city. Can you help us? He shook his head. Number they won't do anything until it's too late? Evelyn's jaw tightened. So what do we do? Just keep driving forever? Jordan glanced at her, his mind racing. He had learned early in life that when the system didn't protect you, you had to defend yourself. I know a place, he finally said. It's not exactly 5-star, but it's safe. Evelyn hesitated. Where? A friend's garage. No cameras. No questions. She looked uncertain, but nodded. Fine. Let's go. Evelyn exhaled shakily as Jordan turned onto an empty road leading away from the bright city lights. For the first time in her life, she wasn't in control. And for the first time, she had no choice but to trust a stranger. Section 4. A shelter in the storm. Jordan pulled the taxi into a dimly lit alley, the city's neon glow fading behind them. The garage was tucked between two abandoned buildings, its metal door covered in graffiti. It wasn't much to look at, but to Jordan, it meant safety. Evelyn shifted uncomfortably in her seat. This is your safe place? Jordan shot her a look. You got a better option? She didn't answer. He stepped out of the car and knocked on the metal door thrice. A moment later, it slid open loudly, revealing a stocky man in an oil-stained jumpsuit. Jay? The man's deep voice rumbled with surprise. What the hell you doing here this late? Need a favor, Manny, Jordan said, stepping aside to reveal Evelyn. We ran into some trouble. Manny's dark eyes flicked between them, his thick brows furrowing. What kind of trouble? Jordan exhaled. The kind that follows you if you don't disappear fast. Manny didn't ask more. He nodded and stepped back, letting them inside. The garage smelled of motor oil and rubber, and a few old cars covered in dust were parked along the walls. Evelyn crossed her arms, clearly out of place. So, what now? We hide here forever? Jordan ran a hand over his face, exhaustion creeping in. We lay low, figure out who those guys were, and then deal with it. Evelyn let out a bitter laugh. Deal with it? Jordan, I don't even know what it is. Manny, who had been watching silently, finally spoke. This about you or her? Jordan hesitated. I don't know. Evelyn scoffed. Great. So I'm being hunted or collateral damage in whatever mess you've got going on? Jordan turned to her, his patience wearing thin. Look, lady, I'm risking my neck to keep you safe, so maybe quit acting like I planned this. Evelyn's face hardened, but she didn't argue. Manny sighed. Whatever this is, you two better figure it out fast. 'Cause if those guys wanted you bad enough to corner you in the streets, they won't stop looking now. Silence filled the room. The weight of the situation pressed down on them both. Evelyn Sinclair had no control over her fate for the first time in her life. And for the first time in his life, Jordan Carter had no choice but to trust a woman from a world that had never trusted him. The garage was silent, except for the faint hum of a nearby street lamp flickering outside the alley. Evelyn paced, her heels clicking against the concrete floor, while Jordan leaned against an old workbench, arms crossed, watching her. She was restless, frustrated. Okay, she finally said, stopping mid-step. Let's think this through. Who could want to hurt you? Jordan scoffed. You assume this is about me? Evelyn shot him a look. Well, is it? He hesitated. The truth was, he wasn't sure. Yeah, he'd had his share of run-ins with cops and people who didn't like a black man driving around their neighborhoods, but nothing that warranted an ambush in the middle of the city. Manny, who had been quietly watching, finally spoke up. Maybe you're both looking at this wrong. Maybe this ain't just about him or just about you. Maybe it's about both of you together. Evelyn frowned. What does that even mean? Manny wiped his hands on a rag and leaned against a rusted car. Lady, what do you do for a living? She straightened. I own Sinclair Enterprises. Jordan let out a low whistle. Figures. Manny raised an eyebrow. That's a big name. Lot of power? Lot of enemies? Evelyn rolled her eyes. Business competitors don't hire thugs to attack people in the street. Manny shrugged. Depends on the business. Jordan ran a hand over his jaw, thinking, all right, let's flip it. What about me? I'm just a cab driver, nothing special. Manny studied him. You ever pick up someone you shouldn't have? Jordan frowned, thinking back. His job meant he saw people who talked too much, carried things they shouldn't, and acted like no one in the front seat was listening. Then, suddenly, it clicked. His eyes snapped to Evelyn. That night, a week ago, I picked up a guy outside Sinclair Tower. He was nervous, kept checking his phone. Evelyn's face paled. Who was he? I don't know. He got out before I could figure it out. But he left something in my cab. Jordan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. I kept it because, I don't know, something felt off. Evelyn took it from him, unfolding it carefully. Her breath caught as she read the words scribbled on it. The deal isn't clean. They know. Be careful. Her hands trembled. Manny whistled low. Damn. Jordan narrowed his eyes. You recognize it, don't you? Evelyn swallowed hard. It's from my company. Someone inside Sinclair Enterprises is involved in something illegal. Jordan exhaled. And now we're caught in the middle of it. For the first time, Evelyn's world, one of luxury, power, and privilege, collided with Jordan's world of survival and instinct. And if they didn't figure out who was behind this soon, neither would make it out alive. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the note as the weight of realization settled over her. Someone inside her company was involved in something dangerous, dangerous enough to send men after them in the middle of the night. Jordan rubbed the back of his neck. So, what's the plan? Because sitting here ain't gonna solve anything. Manny crossed his arms. You got two choices. Go to the cops or figure out who's behind this yourself. Evelyn exhaled sharply. Going to the police isn't an option. If this involves Sinclair Enterprises, I don't know who to trust. This could go all the way to the top. Jordan gave her a look. So that means we're on our own? Manny sighed. Not entirely. He walked over to his workbench, rifling through a pile of old tools and car parts before pulling out an old burner phone. Use this. No tracking, no questions. If you need to make a call, do it on this. Evelyn took the phone hesitantly. Who do we even call? Jordan thought for a moment before his eyes darkened. I know someone who might have answers. Evelyn tilted her head. Who? A guy named Reggie. He runs information, knows things before most people do. If there's a leak in your company, he'll know about it. Evelyn looked skeptical, but nodded. Fine. Where do we find him? Jordan sighed. That's the tricky part. Reggie doesn't exactly keep an office. Manny smirked. But you know where to start looking. Jordan met his gaze and nodded. Yeah, but it won't be easy. Evelyn crossed her arms. After everything that's happened tonight, I don't think easy is an option anymore. Before anyone could say another word, the distant sound of tires screeching against pavement echoed through the alley. Jordan's stomach dropped. Manny cursed under his breath. You were followed. Evelyn's eyes widened. They found us? Jordan didn't waste a second. We have to move. Now! Manny rushed to the garage door, peeking outside. A black SUV rolled to a stop at the alley's entrance, its headlights beaming through the darkness like hungry eyes. Jordan grabbed Evelyn's wrist. Come on! Manny threw him a set of keys. Take the old sedan out back. It ain't fast, but it won't be registered to you. Jordan caught them and nodded gratefully. Evelyn hesitated. Manny, you… I'll handle this, Manny interrupted. You two just go. Jordan pulled Evelyn toward the back exit, where an old but sturdy car sat in dust. As they jumped in, the garage door rattled. Someone was trying to force their way in. Jordan turned the key. The engine roared to life just as the first gunshot rang out. Evelyn flinched. Jordan? Hold on! With one sharp turn of the wheel, Jordan sped out of the alley, the city stretching before them. The chase had begun. And now, there was no turning back. Section 7. A Leap into the Unknown. The old sedan roared down the empty streets, the black SUV following close behind. Jordan's grip tightened on the wheel as he took sharp turns, trying to lose their pursuers. Evelyn clutched her seatbelt. They're gaining on us! Jordan glanced in the rearview mirror. The SUV's headlights glowed like predators' eyes, closing in with every passing second. Not for long, he muttered. He spotted an upcoming intersection with a red light. On instinct, he yanked the wheel left, sending the car screeching onto a narrow side street. The sudden turn brought them a few seconds, but the SUV followed, its tires screeching in pursuit. Evelyn's breath was shaky. Jordan, this car is too slow. We're not gonna outrun them. Jordan exhaled sharply, thinking fast. Speed wasn't an option. He needed another way. Then he saw it. A construction site up ahead. Large metal beams, unfinished roads, and an open ramp leading down into an underground parking lot. Jordan's jaw tightened. Hold on tight. What? Why? Before Evelyn could finish, Jordan cut the wheel sharply, sending the car hurtling toward the ramp. The sedan bounced violently as it hit the dirt, kicking up dust. The SUV hesitated for a second before following, its powerful engine roaring behind them. Jordan scanned the dimly lit garage, looking for anything useful. Just as they turned a corner, he spotted a row of parked trucks covered in tarps. Time to disappear, he murmured. Without warning, he killed the engine and rolled the car into the shadows behind one of the larger trucks. The moment they came to a stop, He reached over and covered Evelyn's mouth with his hand. Not a sound, he whispered. Evelyn's eyes widened, but she nodded. Moments later, the SUV skidded into view, its headlights sweeping across the garage. Jordan and Evelyn held their breath as the beams passed inches away from their hiding spot. The SUV idled for a moment. Then the doors opened. Heavy footsteps echoed through the underground space. A deep voice cursed. "They were just here!" Another voice growled. "Search the area." Evelyn's fingers trembled against Jordan's arm. He gently squeezed her hand, silently telling her to stay calm. The men stalked through the garage, peering into every corner. Jordan's pulse pounded in his ears. If they were found now, there was no way out. Minutes passed like hours. Then, "Forget it," one of the men snapped. "They won't get far. We'll find them again." The SUV's doors slammed shut, and with a roar the vehicle sped off. Jordan exhaled quietly, waiting until the sound of the engine faded utterly. Finally, he released Evelyn and sat back. Evelyn let out a shaky breath. "That was too close." Jordan nodded. "Yeah, but we bought ourselves some time." Evelyn looked at him. Something different in her eyes now. Something softer. "Jordan, why are you helping me? You could have left me a long time ago." Jordan met her gaze. "Because I know what it's like to be left behind." Silence hung between them. At that moment, Evelyn realized something. She had spent her life surrounded by people who worked for her, obeyed her, and admired her. But no one had ever genuinely stood by her, until now. Jordan, a man from a different world, had risked everything to protect her. And now, together, they had one last move to make. "We need to find this Reggie guy," Evelyn said firmly. "If he knows what's going on, he's our only shot." Jordan nodded, starting the engine again. "Then let's get to work." As they drove off into the unknown, one thing was clear. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about justice, and neither of them was backing down. Enjoyed this story? Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales. Let's spread the message of hope and unity together. Thanks and take care.